Hey guys, Mr. Morgan here. I just wanted to make this review video so that you guys could go through the study guide and the vocab and make sure that we all have the correct answers. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, number one, what mountain is Africa's highest peak? That would be Mount Kilimanjaro. Of these seven peaks, which is the highest point on every continent, Mount Kilimanjaro is the smallest and lies along the Great Ridge Valley. And what are the four major rivers? So the largest lake in the region is Lake Victoria, and then our four rivers are the Nile, Zambezi, Orange, and Limpopo rivers. Number three, what causes colder temperatures in southern and eastern Africa? So many parts of southern and eastern Africa have higher elevations, causing colder temperatures. So in comparison to west and central Africa, we have much cooler temperatures because of the ridges and the valley that we have in the area. Number four, describe the African savanna and give an example of one in the region. So a savanna is a large flat grassland with few trees. And then our example in the African savanna is the Serengeti Plains. Number five, endangered animals are caused by what two things? So that would be poaching or overhunting and people moving in and destroying animal habitats. Number six, how do governments in southern and eastern Africa try to protect these endangered animals? That would be through the creation of national parks. So national parks allow animals a place to roam around and exist how they would normally in their habitats had humans not come in and either overhunted or destroyed their homes. Number seven, how does mining help countries like South Africa and Botswana? So what it does is it creates mineral wealth and money for strong economies, and it is important for business and industry. So the main thing is that it helps build strong economies. Number eight, what are some examples of crops grown in fertile areas? So we see a lot of farming in southern and eastern Africa. Some areas use irrigation to create more fertile land, which is land that can grow lots of food. But naturally fertile areas grow things like sugarcane, cotton, avocados, tropical fruits, and coffee. How do rivers provide benefits to countries in the region? We see this in two main ways. So we have transportation, but our two main ways that we see the rivers is hydroelectricity from dams along the rivers, and then they provide irrigation water for nearby farms. So countries in the area can use this to provide electricity for homes as well as water for areas that aren't necessarily as fertile or as abundant as others. Number 10, what are environmental diseases and what are some examples? So some examples are things like river blindness, cholera, malaria, and sleeping sickness. And a environmental disease is one caused by a factor in the environment, such as insects and bugs or bacteria in the water, as we see in our examples here. So our one example that we talked about in this chapter that is non-environmental would be that of AIDS. Autoimmune deficiency syndrome is spread from person to person and therefore would not be an environmental disease. Okay, number 11, we are now in section 2, which is history. So how long ago do the first humans date back to Africa? That would be 2 million years ago. So scientists and anthropologists have found human remains in fossils, and through carbon dating, we can see just how old these are. And so the oldest fossils that we have found of human remains are dating back to 2 million years ago in modern-day Ethiopia. Okay, what group did the early Nubians trade skills and technologies with? So we see a bunch of different ancient civilizations in southern and eastern Africa. The first one that we see is the Nubians around 2000 BC, and they traded with the ancient Egyptians. So they traded with people in eastern Africa, but mainly the ancient Egyptians. Number 13, what made the Axum people a trading hub with both Africa and the rest of the world? That would be trading ports along the Red Sea. So while with the Nubians, we saw trading with people only within Africa and the Africans to the north and the Egyptians, we see the Axum start to trade with more people from the rest of the world, mainly Rome and India. So the trading ports along the Red Sea connected them to the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. So besides farming and iron tools, what did the Bantu people spread to other people in southern Africa? So around 500 AD, the Bantu came to southern Africa and started to spread their language. So with their advanced farming and iron tools, they started to teach other people in the area, and in order to teach them, they had to speak the same language. So people started to adopt the Bantu language, which we see transform into modern day languages like Swahili and Afrikaans. Okay, number 15. Arab traders near eastern ports had influence on what four things? So that would be culture, art, religion, and language. So trading mainly through the island of Zanzibar and other eastern ports, we see them start to influence things like culture, art, religion, and language. Number 16, the Dutch East India Company started what settlement? So this would be in 1652, they settled the town of Cape Town. Cape Town, South Africa was settled by the Dutch East India Company in 1652. Number 17, local groups like the Mau Mau started political parties for what reasons? This would be to end British or colonial rule. So through these revolutions or through attempts at peaceful political revolution, we see groups like the Mau Mau and the ANC in South Africa attempt to end British or colonial rule. Number 18, what two things were important trends in Africa after independence? So that would be urbanization and industrialization. Urbanization is the growth of major or large cities, and industrialization is the growth of industry, factories, and technology. So as technology advanced, more factories were starting to be built in larger cities, where we see more people start to flock to work these factory jobs. And as this happens, it cycles and cycles and cycles and continues and grows and grows and grows. Okay, number 19, put these historical events in the correct order. So on the left, we can see the box that you would have on your study guide, and on the right, I put it in the correct order. So our first thing is the Nubian civilizations formed in Sudan. So this would be 2000 BC. We see the Nubian civilizations formed. And then in 500 AD, reminder that BC means before zero, or think of it like a negative number. And then 500 AD, the Bantu people migrate to southern Africa. So 500 AD means Anno Domini, year of our Lord, or after death is another way to think of it. So it's after the zero. So the Bantu people migrate in the year 500 to southern Africa. Next, we have Portugal begins trading with Eastern Africans in about 1400. And then around 1500, we see that Portugal conquers and controls a majority of Eastern Africa. So jumping ahead to about 1948 or 1950, we see apartheid beginning. So apartheid, which is the legal segregation of Black South Africans from white South Africans, begins. And then in 1994, Nelson Mandela is elected president of South Africa, and the country is finally independent. Okay, so number 20. English and Arabic are two languages spoken in southern and eastern Africa. What are two others? So we have Afrikaans and Swahili as the main two that we talked about in the notes and throughout the PowerPoints, but we also mentioned at other times Zulu and Bantu. So the main ones that we need to know are Afrikaans, which is a mixture of English and Dutch with the Bantu language, and then Swahili, which is a mixture of Bantu with Arabic. So we have Afrikaans and Swahili. Okay, number 21, what three religions are practiced in the region? So we have traditional native religions or indigenous religions, and then we have Islam and Christianity. So number 22, ethnic groups often fought for what reason after Europeans left? So ethnic groups or groups within countries fought for power after independence. And we would see this in the next question. So what conflict started in 1994 and what were the groups in conflict? So we have in 1994 the Rwandan genocide start, and that is between the Hutu and the Tutsi peoples. Number 24, what are the 5 major barriers or obstacles to development? So the 5 major barriers or obstacles that we see are lack of stable government, lack of resources, corruption, lack of education, and then disease. So again, that is lack of stable government, lack of resources, lack of education, corruption, and disease. Okay, number 25, what disease is hitting Southern and Eastern Africa the hardest, and how many people does it kill each year in the region? So that would be HIV or AIDS. More specifically, AIDS stands for autoimmune deficiency syndrome and kills about 1.5 million people each year. Okay, number 26, study the characteristics of democracies and dictatorships, know the difference. And so on here I have our list of democracy characteristics and dictatorship characteristics. A reminder that you can use the Kahoot that goes over democracy and dictatorship. So on the test, you're going to need to know at least 5, and you may use one example. So democracy, we have government is run by elected officials. Elections are free and open to all citizens. Citizens are guaranteed certain rights and freedoms. Rights are protected by the government. Citizens can participate in government, have the right to disagree with the government, imposes limits on government power, and schools, television, radio, and news are allowed and unrestricted in democracy. And so our examples, we could put something like South Africa or the United States of America. For dictatorship, our characteristics are one individual or group holds all the power, leaders gain power through force or military action, and is often hated or feared. Citizens have no voice or power, no elections, and if elections are held, there is only one choice. And then schools, television, radio, and news are controlled by those in power. Okay, moving on now, that completes all of the 26 questions that we have on our study guide. Now we have our vocabulary. Great Rift Valley. So this is an unusually long flat area of land between areas of higher ground in Eastern Africa. So our next vocab word is that of the Serengeti Plain. So we talked about this earlier with savannas. This is the most famous part of the savanna and is home to many different animals. Our next word is poaching. So this is illegal hunting of protected animals. We have ecotourism now. Ecotourism is a kind of tourism in which people learn about conservation and try to do little to no harm to the environment. Irrigation is bringing water to an area, often through dams and pipes from large rivers. Now we have Boers. Boers are European farmers in colonial South Africa. So these are the people that went to Cape Town, mainly were from Dutch, France, the Netherlands, France, and Britain. Now we have ethnocentrism. So we talked about this when we talked about apartheid and colonialism and imperialism. So ethnocentrism is the belief that their own cultures were superior to others and is incredibly similar to racism, except ethnocentrism can be used between one's own race. So it could be something like British versus French. You could have ethnocentrism in that regard, but we mainly see it in the area between things like Black and white South Africans. Okay, now we have the Mau Mau. So this is a movement that decided to use force to end British rule in Kenya more quickly. So this is one of our political movements. This is the first one that we talked about. This was one of our incredibly successful ones. They quickly revolted and had a revolution against the British rule and were able to become a democracy incredibly quickly and have a stable government. And now we have apartheid. So apartheid we talked about a couple of times with Nelson Mandela, and we talked about it in great detail. This was legal segregation of Black South Africans from white South Africans. Okay, so we have the African National Congress. So this was the political party fighting for Black civil rights. It was backed by Nelson, or led by Nelson Mandela, and fought in South Africa from 1950 until about 1994, when they eventually won with the election of Nelson Mandela. It ended apartheid. So now we have indigenous. So indigenous people are native to the region. So they are the original people in the region. So an example would be the indigenous people of America are the Native Americans. Okay, coming down to our last couple, we have Swahili. Swahili is a language that combines aspects of Bantu with Arabic. So at one point we learned Swahili. So if you happen to remember some Swahili, that might help you with the test, because there might be a bonus question about Swahili. Okay, so genocide. So genocide is an attempt to destroy a whole entire race or people, and we talked about this when we discussed the Rwandan genocide, and then the comparisons between the Rwandan genocide and the Holocaust and how they were incredibly similar. Now we have AIDS, or autoimmune deficiency syndrome. Autoimmune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS, is an often deadly disease that attacks the immune system and is caused by the HIV virus. So it is spread through contaminated blood and is spread from person to person. So it is non-environmental, is one of our non-environmental diseases. And how it works is it makes your immune system incredibly weak. So you are more likely to catch something like the flu or like a coronavirus, a COVID, and you are more prone to the symptoms of it, and it affects you a lot more. So what may just be for any of us the normal seasonal flu or a cold is a lot more dangerous for someone who suffers from AIDS. So our last one that we have is non-governmental organizations. So non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, are groups that operate with private funding to help deal with environmental problems like poverty, disease, and conflict. So the main way that we see this is through them trying to help with disease control, poverty, education, especially education of women, and then just overall aid through food, water, and peacekeeping in the area. So non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, groups that operate with private funding to help deal with environmental problems like poverty, disease, and conflict. So that covers all of the vocab words for Chapter 2. And with that, we have completed everything for the Chapter 2 study guide. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you guys out. I will see you guys later. Have a great day. Bye.